Thank you guys so much for tuning in to PREM1ER Podcast. This is our first episode. We hope that you enjoy it. We've got a lot of questions about what we're going to talk about in this podcast. I think in the beginning, our main topics are going to be everything that's relating to the business that we run over at PREM1ER. So we're going to be talking about construction, renovations, basically everything in between. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for what stations we're going to be on. If it's YouTube, Apple, all your major ones, we're going to be on them. So just stay tuned for that. Thank you so much. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. I'm very happy that you decided to get on this journey with me and start this podcast. I think what we need to do is just start right from the beginning. Where did we begin? How did PREM1ER begin? That was a major question. A lot of people asked, hey, where did you guys come from? How did you start? So I think we get into it by going back, let's say, a little bit in history before PREM1ER started. You and I have known each other for many years. You were actually a general contractor for me at one point in time back when I was in the industry. We developed a friendship. We ended up working together before I went on to other ventures. We ended up working together, and that relationship stayed tight throughout the years. And lo and behold, here we are today. So 2019, August of 2019 is when PREM1ER was created. Mama and Papa's couch. Didn't really have an idea what I was doing at that point in time, but I knew it was a good idea. Why? Because my friend Clay said, if anyone can do this, it's you. And at that point in time, I think my whole idea was, let me focus on what I know best, and that was renovations. So for the podcast listeners out there who have no clue actually who we are, I came from the multifamily industry many years, ended up leaving the industry as an executive. But my whole career basically was unit renovations, developed, different plans, different scopes, different things that helped the industry throughout the years. And even to this day, people still use some of that stuff. But unit renovations was ultimately what I knew I was the best at. And obviously before you came along, I knew that you knew everything, basically, including renovations under the sun when it came to construction. So 2019 happens, Mama and Papa's couch. You tell me, hey, you can do this. At that point in time, I didn't really have any jobs. I knew some companies that I could go to and see if I couldn't get work. But again, I think one of the important things is knowing that they might know who you are, but they don't know who your company is. And that was a real wake-up call, I think, for me in the beginning, is because I wanted to believe that they would want to hire me because of what they knew I did in the industry. But ultimately, they can know you through thick and thin and know you better than anybody. But it doesn't mean that they're going to hire you to actually do the renovations or the work that they need, because they represent, obviously, their clients or their ownership groups as well. So struggled a little bit that first 6 months trying to get my feet off the ground. Ended up getting some contracts that were under contract, if you remember. And you had told me, hey, listen, if you can show me, because I knew I wanted to have you on board, I just didn't know to what context. But I started to definitely believe that construction was a vital part of what we were going to do for the future at PREM1ER.
Couldn't be more correct.
Basically knowing that you can do renovations, you can have a successful renovation company. We do have competitors of ours that we do know that have only basically renovation companies, but to sustain for longevity reasons and based off of how fickle the industry is at times, we knew that we needed to have more meat on the bone, and that would be the construction element or capital improvements, CapEx side. So basically, I had these contracts that were not quite executed yet, but they were in the process of being executed. Knowing that I needed the CapEx side, you had said to me, show me that you are willing to do what it takes. And then I will consider coming on board with you, but I got to see something why. And I'll let you talk about that a little bit, but coming from the previous company that you were at, it was a big risk to leave what you had worked hard to achieve, um, and knowing that, hey, this is kind of a leap of faith here because we have nothing. We have a really good idea. We have drive and ambition and passion. But other than that, those are all great things to have, don't get me wrong, but they don't sustain dollars. And you got to have dollars at least to put food on your family's table. A little bit about that background with you and what made you decide. What was part of that decision making in coming on board with PREM1ER, if you remember it?
Well, it boiled down to, for me, I knew that you knew people in the industry. I knew you had the experience it required to be able to do unit interior renovations. Now, as you said, came from a background where I did both. I did capital improvements
Yeah,
across the entire state of Washington and Oregon. Also did unit interior renovations from vacant to occupied.
yeah,
I
yeah,
knew though, for me, I wanted to do one or the other. I didn't want to do both anymore because I realized through our experiences that it was a pain in the butt
yeah,
to do both at the same time.
yeah,
So the successes I saw in companies prior was when people focused and specialized on either doing the capital improvements or doing the unit interior renovations. I knew that if you and I could team up, I could oversee the capital improvements, all the
yeah.
construction, the remodels, and that if you could focus on the unit interior renovations, we could be successful and would be successful. So it was 2019. You asked me come aboard, and the thinking was that you would obviously run the unit interior renovations,
Yeah,
and that I would be the one that would oversee capital improvements,
correct.
which was a great decision because in my experience and your experience, it was easy to focus on one and not the other. But to do both kind of slowed the progress down of doing one specifically really well.
Yeah, yeah,
So with us teaming up and be able to be together, you could oversee unit interior renovations, focus highly on that. I could focus on capital improvements where I could bring teams together, meet with clients that I'd already been dealing with, and we would move forward with the capital improvements.
and I think one of the things that we talked about mainly was, uh, or most importantly, was not just what would separate us and make us different than everybody else. Knowing that, again, we've mentioned this before, that the idea here was to combine these forces, you and me together, somebody that was from the industry for many years, somebody who was a general contractor, and combining those forces that the industry, I don't think has ever seen before. Um, and I know that it really shook up a lot when we first started because it allowed us to focus on two different aspects. One, my mindset had always been multifamily, and as you know, it still is today. I think like multifamily, I operate like multifamily, and I think we've tried to teach our employees to operate and function like that as well. Um, but yeah, having those differences because you come from that construction background again, where we have two different variables here as a company. We have somebody who operates in the multifamily sector. I might have started PREM1ER, but I wasn't a construction person. I was a multifamily person. And then you've got somebody like yourself who was in the construction industry, who thinks like a construction expert, who understands bids, processes, things that need to happen a certain way that I never actually got a chance to see when I was a multifamily because I didn't operate in the space that you operated in. So when you combine those forces together, I think, yeah, definitely it shook up the industry because now you've got a double punch instead of a single coming in. One of the things I want to mention though, that I think we have found interesting is you have a lot of individuals in the industry, industry meaning construction realm, that when you have one single entity, um, a construction professional who's been basically bred, raised, and has only done construction, like yourself in the beginning, right, or throughout your career, um, having that mindset, did you find makes it harder or easier coming into a construction space? Now, let me rephrase it like this. So, the idea was I always thought construction professionals had one mindset, right? And we know that's the truth, right? It's bids, it's getting the job done, it's uh, getting compliant, whatever that is. But it's a construction mindset, and that whole focus is construction mindset. Where for us now, let me kind of change it up. For us, it's more of you have the construction mindset behind it, but now you have the operational executive experience from my background to know what they're actually looking for, what they actually want to see, how that actually operates, where now we get to deliver kind of again, a 1-2 punch. Does that even make sense? You know what I mean?
It does make sense. It takes us from being a construction company that just delivers what the client asks you to do,
Yeah, yeah,
where they evaluate your numbers solely. That's what has set us apart. Is rather than someone come to us and say, okay, we're getting 3 or 4 contractors to put bids together, give us your numbers. We'll look at the bottom line. That's the only consideration for us moving forward on the projects.
yeah,
And that's where we're different, because we're able to say, hold on, let's stop the brakes. Let's pump it a little bit. Let's talk about it. What do you conceptually want for this project? Is it a short-term hold? Is this a long-term investment? I mean, what's the plan for the property? So we can look at this as a preliminary, here's what you need to do now. Here's what you need to do for a 3-year, a 5-year hold. And we can look at it as if we were the owners as well, which is kind of what sets us apart. Partly because you have that executive background, I was able to watch what you did with the general contractors, take that input of, okay, he represents the owners of this property, even though he may be fee management.
which I think that is one thing I think for you listeners out there, that is something that we're going to talk about on future episodes is, as a company, how do we come up with cost projections and market analysis? How do we work with clients on getting rate of returns, so on and so forth, which again, I think a lot of construction companies just don't understand or do. And we're being vulnerable to all you guys as a company. We want the message to get out there. We want the information to get out there to you guys. So if you are a construction expert and you are watching this and you're just curious about PREM1ER in general and how we became successful in the time that we've been in business, hopefully you can take notes and you can glean from that. We definitely talked about being an open book. We're not going to shy away from anything. We're going to talk about basically everything that we've done to be successful up to this point. And as we continue to grow and diverse and expand to different states, which we currently are, we're going to take you along on that journey and show you how we do it, what it took, and hopefully you guys get something from it. So, getting back to, again, jumping back to the 2019, I think I think it was one-sided on my part. I knew that I wanted to have you on board. I don't think necessarily you were fully committed at the point that we had sat down at that Mexican restaurant and had our chips and salsa and our meal and talked about it. But what was your thought process? I mean, from your back, we'll talk about 2019 and what got me to Washington from California. But what was your thought process behind that, knowing, hey, I've got these contracts in place. I don't have them actually signed yet because it was kind of at the end of the year there, and we knew the new year was coming and budgets had just cleared. So hopefully something was in the mix. But where was your mindset during that time?
Yeah, at that time, like I told you, I pretty much had said my recommendation to you was to not have a business partner ever.
Yeah, correct.
We laugh about that because, we ended up going against that grain.
That's right.
That's why the initial discussion was that I would come on as possibly like a vice president or someone in a different role.
Yeah.
But I believed in you. I knew that whatever
Thanks,
you
bro.
were going to touch when it came to unit renovations specifically was going to be successful.
Yeah.
But I also knew that unit interior renovations is a very costly adventure.
That's right.
It takes a lot of effort, a lot of money to keep that afloat. And that's one of the things that you and I talked about was, well, the plan for that, to be able to do those unit interior renovations, how are we going to fund that? What are we going to do? We'll get more into that later, into the details of that.
Yeah.
But when we thought about that process was, how do we infuse our business with enough cash that we're able to stay afloat and succeed and scale? All things we'll continue to talk about another time.
Yeah.
But those are the things that you and I talked about was, okay, well, if we team up, we can do this together because you were the visionary.
It goes back
100%.
It goes back to that, what we just talked about before with the start of the podcast, right? That you may have the greatest idea in the entire world, but when it's up to you to fund that idea with your own money, things start to change a little bit. Why? Because now it's your own money and it's not an investor's money, and you better believe in the idea and the desires that you have to do whatever venture you want. So
100%.
Yeah.
So, but back to it, I believed that you could cast the vision, that you'd be 100% behind what we were going to do. And I knew that if I got on board,
Yeah.
I'm 100%er as well. I'm going to do everything it takes. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to stay up late. We're both very well known in the industry because
Yeah.
people know that you and I deliver pretty much no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we take pride in that. So we took your vision, my drive, my networking ambition to do whatever I needed to for any client to make sure they were successful, whereby would make us successful.
Yeah.
And I took the vice president position I had at another company, and I said, okay, I'm willing to set this aside,
That's right.
and I'm willing to come aboard, join forces with you at Premier, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do it big.
That's how it went down for sure. So jumping back to that, I think what was the question you had before the podcast? You're like, hey, I want to ask you this, but was it how I got from California to Washington, or coming back to Washington? Because I'm originally from Washington. Not originally, but after I got out of the military, I ended up staying here in Washington, and we ended up going to California for my wife to go to graduate school, and we knew that point in time while I was in California was a short stint. We didn't know how long it was going to be, but yeah, what was the question in itself?
I wanted to know why, of all places, because California is a mecca
For
for
sure.
the multifamily. It's where many companies have started, whether they're capital, whether
Yeah.
they're management companies. It's such a huge industry in California. I wanted to know what made you make the decision to go from that place where there's so much opportunity and come back here to Washington.
Well, I think driving first off in California is horrible. Everyone knows that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for you Californians out there.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a complete joke. The driving is freaking horrible though.
Yeah.
That is for sure. You get
Yeah.
stuck hours and hours and hours. So renovations, or even if locationally where I was located at, you're still driving an hour and a half, 2 hours, even to get to the properties that would make sense for you to do renovations. So that probably didn't make a whole lot of sense. Washington obviously was where my wife and where I was from. So it only made sense to come back here. Plus, I left Washington to go to California. So when I left Washington, all the people that I grew up with in the industry, I came in the industry in 2003, right when I got out of the military. So from 2003 till 2019, I was essentially in the industry that entire time. So, and my roots were always here. So it made sense to be here. It also was more comfortable to be here because I knew I had a surrounding that was supportive of whatever that decision would be for me and my family at that point in time. You were here. You had came out and visited me in California a few times, obviously helped me move there and helped me move back here. So if we were going to do this, I was like, well, it's going to be in Washington because Clay surely ain't freaking moving to California with your family, your kids. And then, and it just, again, made sense for me to come out here. I think the important thing to take from that is when I did come originally from California to Washington, remember, Premier wasn't really in the mix. It was an idea that started to float towards the latter part of our time in California, but nothing was set in stone yet. It wasn't until I ended up taking my own vehicle, leaving my wife and my daughter, and driving from California to Washington, 19 and a half hours straight, basically. When I crested over the mountain of California into Oregon, and then from Oregon through those wildfires, I made it to Washington. And there was just something inside of me that I knew this is home. This is the place that I'm going to, hopefully lay my roots forever, that the family, my daughter will grow up here, and so on and so forth. So it just felt right. Now, feeling right and having a good, experience in the car, if you will, and then again, starting something completely different, scenario. There was a lot of nerves, a lot of obviously nervousness, and also there's people that rely on you. And so in the beginning, it was a very hard thing. We had people that helped support us. I was working with an individual, at that time that I thank him very much. That gave me an opportunity to at least put food on my table, because at that point I had no real job. I had a tech company that I wouldn't necessarily say failed, but we shelved it just due to the industry not ready for it. And so there really was no income coming in. We had savings and stuff like that, but that was really it. So the opportunity I did get in Washington from this individual, which I thank him very much, by the way, if you're watching, it helped me see that I was able to do it. It helped me open my eyes to know I have the confidence to be able to do this. Now, running a company and where we are today, completely different scenario. And I will still, go on record and say it doesn't happen by one or two people alone. It happens with an entire team. And, I know we are so thankful for the team that we have at Premier that helps support us every single day in our vision to continue to carry this torch to different places again. But um, could never do it on our own. But it gave me the confidence at least to fill out that paperwork and get the company started. And then obviously again with you saying that the vision that I cast for you and myself and the company, was what it took. Now, you came on February 2020, right before the pandemic happened, and we knew that there was coughing happening and stuff going on, but we didn't know actually what it was. And so we were out there fielding, meaning interviewing individuals, not necessarily employees. We didn't need any at that time, but interviewing, meaning we were taking ourselves, being interviewed by clients to hopefully get work from them. And I thought that we had a good start. We had actually a list of companies and people that we knew from the industry that we wanted to go and approach. Um, and then the pandemic happens. So here we are. We have a company that I start, don't have any income. I bring you on board with a great vision and a great mindset of what we're going to accomplish. And then the pandemic hits and we have no jobs. And you left your job and I have no money.
And we're non-essential.
And we're not essential. So, wow. So I think most people at that point in time, you can't even really give up. The reason why is because there's no place to give up to, because nobody's hiring. Mm-hmm. Everyone basically closes their doors. And
what did I say to you when we talked about it? Because there was initial fear when we said they shut us down.
Yeah.
We can't do any projects.
Yeah.
What did I say to you?
I don't remember.
Well, I said they're going to come. The jobs will come.
Oh, you did say that. I think that was more towards the latter part, actually. Mm-hmm. Maybe you did say it in the beginning, but more towards the latter part. Now, for the audience members out there, the listeners, the viewers, I did have a seed that was planted in me. Seed meaning money that I ended up getting from a family member to actually help kick and start this thing off. Now, it wasn't intended for me to pay my bills. It was 100% intended to start this company. Clay was part of that mix, but knowing that we had this seed money that we had received, it would carry us for a moment, 6 months or something. But beyond that, it's history. We would be completely out of the loop. So fast forward through those months of COVID, or I like to call it more the pandemic of what the US calls it or whatever. But during that time of the pandemic, when everything was shut down, do you remember what we did during that time? Because there really, again, only essential workers. We didn't get any jobs. Do you remember what we did?
We talked a lot.
We talked all the time, and we strategized.
And
one of the things that we did, again, for the viewers and the listeners out there, if you want to write it down, you're more than welcome to, is basically like a vision board. And part of that vision board was casting vision for what we wanted to achieve, knowing that COVID would eventually lift. But where did we want to take this? And it helped us, I think, give direction as a company, direction for us on not just the lanes that we stay in, be it construction renovations, but direction in the approach of how we want to take the company. We didn't ever anticipate it taking off like a rocket ship the way it did right after the pandemic, but we did have a belief in knowing that we would get jobs. And you had reiterated that to me many times. Why? Because my whole thought process was, oh boy, I brought this guy on who trusted me and I cast a vision for him and us as a company. And yet, what are we going to do? So yeah, there was a lot of, as you know, I'm a believer. There was a lot of nights, you as well, but a lot of nights praying and asking the Lord for direction when it came to, what are we going to do? And I always had a sense of peace, but what even more made it more peaceful is when you have a friend like yourself who can confirm your prayer life with, it's going to be all right. And they will come. The jobs will come. And you used to say another little phrase to me in the beginning, and you still use it now, not as much though, is, Joe, just remember, this is the smallest we will ever be. And that really sank in over the years that we've been in business, because it allowed me to now have a foundation or groundwork in place, knowing, okay, if we're here and this is the lowest bar that we'll ever be, You know, again, for the listeners and viewers out there, if you have a bar set and you can believe that this is the lowest you'll ever be, just stay with that and be patient. It doesn't have to be millions or even thousands of dollars overnight. Just additional revenue coming in as a company is one step closer to the goals that you've set for yourself personally and as a company and business. And I think that that really helps, because if you keep letting yourself believe and know that this is the smallest you'll ever be, then you're never gonna back. I'm not saying that it won't happen, and God forbid it does, but you know, the belief would be that you don't backslide. You continue to just build on top of what's coming in and what you're doing, and take those baby steps, and then eventually you can run a little bit faster and then take some leaps, but it's got to start somewhere, right? So we get our first job in May of 2020.
May 28th.
Yeah, May
We started.
28th of 2020. We ended up getting some renovations, which was really good. We ended up doing some construction projects where we would be out there every day. And I think that one of the things that's important for our listeners and our viewers to know also is we didn't start out with anything. We started out with you, me, a belief, a dream, and a hope, but we did everything. We drove our own vehicles. We had our own trucks and cars packed with tools. We went and did whatever it took to not just prove to a client, because I think proof to a client comes in various ways, but I think proving to ourselves, listen, that drive and that determination's inside of us. And there was, I mean, obviously we both know this, that there were, I would say for the good first year and a half, 16, 18, 20-hour days was nothing uncommon. Yet we still had family. We still had kids. You know, my wife definitely had needs as well. In regards to just having a husband at home, but there was needs at the house for both of us. There was personal time that we needed to walk away and have a break from Premiere, because you got to get your mind right. You got to get your positioning straight at all times. And then you're focusing all of this effort on a company. And I remember 3 o'clock in the morning, you and me texting, where I was trying to do invoices and figure out invoicing, and you were telling me what jobs they were. So crazy ride, crazy ride till that point, right? And then ended up closing the year, doing very well, a lot better than I think a lot better than the people who did know us would have assumed. But we knew that this is just the start of something great. So as a company now with Premiere, what would you think? You know, let's fast forward. Now we're August, so August, September. So we are 19, 20, 21, 22. So we're 4 years, 1 month. Essentially 4 years and 1 month from the day I created the company. So we got to say inception, but you know, we both know that it's 10 months after I started it, or whatever, until we got our first job. But let's just use that as an analogy, 4 years and 1 month now. What have you seen from the time that we had started to the time we are now? What have you seen as far as growth, and not just as a company, but growth as individuals, you and me, from the first moment that we started this and took this adventure to where we are today?
I would say we're much more proactive than reactive. I would say both yourself and myself, we've changed in that regard.
Yeah.
We were instant gratification at one point in time. We had to have instant answers
Yeah.
right now, whether it was a subcontractor, whether it was ourselves, whatever it was. We're now much better planners. We stop, we take a deep breath. Even
Yeah.
if we have to coach each other on it, we
Yeah.
ask questions so we know what to do to make decisions and be proactive and plan.
And we don't take anything personal.
We definitely don't.
We take everything to the table,
Yeah.
and we don't take anything personal. There's many times that I have said stuff that you didn't agree with, and you've said stuff that I didn't agree with. So yeah, that's good.
Been very happy with that. So yeah, so that's where I think we are. I think we're much more proactive planners than we were there before. I love that we've hired some of the best people in the industry, which has just been, that probably is one of my happiest points in my career, is the amount of talent we've been able to procure. People we've met, whether they were previous clients, they were competitors, even, just people we've known through
Let's
the
get
years.
into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. So we
Yeah.
got the time. So let's again tell the viewers and the listeners out there, what is our strategy as a company when it came to the hiring process of individuals?
It's not about experience necessarily. It's about attitude. Do you have a good attitude? Are you coachable? Are you going to enjoy what you're doing? Are you going to bring the positive energy to the team, have something to contribute, and yet still want direction, want to be guided and be part of that vision that's cast?
A lot of the people that we have hired, when you had mentioned industry, we do have people obviously from the actual industry, the industry that I came from the
Mm-hmm.
multifamily world, which they're very talented. We're very happy to have them. But a lot of our employees are actually not from this industry at all. And what we have found is talent can be found anywhere. It's what type of talent are you looking for specifically, and is there a need to fit it? We have we have an employee right now who is a high level employee for us, Robert, for instance. I'll bring up his name. He wasn't hired specifically for the job that we interviewed him for, but during that interview there was something that you and I noticed, me in the beginning more specifically, on I think he would be better in this position. And one of the things that we've always told every employee that has been interviewed with us, that has been hired by us, or maybe it wasn't the right fit, is we're a company that does not fit the norm. We definitely are an outside the box thinking company. Now, that we're going to get into that a little bit more about how we utilize technology in what we do every day as a construction company, and that in itself separates us in a lot of ways, or thinking outside the box. But when it came to specifically interviewing individuals, we never went into it, and tell me if this is right or wrong, we never went into it with a solid game plan of, we are going to take this individual specifically for this position. We've always went into it knowing they interviewed for this position, but let's try to pull the character. Let's try to pull the
Potential.
potential out of that person, or even seeing stuff that they might not see about themselves that we tune into. To see if it's actually the position we want to hire them for, or maybe we have something else that would be, we believe, a better fit. And ironically, a lot of the employees that we have nowadays, they did not interview for the position that they went to, and they're thrive now today, because one of the things that we preach the most at our company is we put you in positions for you to excel. It's all about you. And we never want to put you in a position that will allow you to fail. So if there's a position that better fits your needs and your suits, that we can adapt into our company culture, then we're going to go with that. Why? Because that in itself is what makes our company think differently, operate differently. And we see it in many ways, obviously, over the time frame we've been in business.
The successes of our employees, we've watched it. They tell us even specifically that this is one of the best things they've ever had.
Yeah.
They enjoy what they do. They love it. They have a passion for it.
It's good. It's good. So company-wise, culture-wise, what type of culture? Now, not just the interviewing of individuals, not putting them in the right place and thinking outside the box, but how would you categorize PREM1ER's culture?
Ask me a little more how you mean. What do you mean by that?
What is the overall feeling as a company when it comes to employees, processes, that type of realm?
Well, I'd say our employees, they've grown with us. Obviously through
sure.
the years, we've installed new processes, which can be challenging at times
We've
for
lost,
employees.
unfortunately, we've lost employees due to it. Yeah,
Yeah, we've had new processes that we put in place, but it's done nothing but make us stronger.
correct.
We become more organized and brought more to the table, and we're able to actually evaluate our employees better and then give them quality feedback, which has been huge. I will say that we don't have many low-level employees.
Well, we're actually really not a low level.
We don't.
We're a management company.
We aren't. So we don't
Construction
have
management.
low skill. Everyone we've hired, we've taken the time and energy to put behind them and to elevate them to the position they're in.
Yeah.
So,
Very much so.
I would say that the morale of the company it's great morale. It's a professional company, but people tell us they've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
They haven't seen any construction company that does what we do, or that it's the same situation when they go to the office.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. And obviously, again, when you have people that you hire, let's just utilize different companies that we've experienced that are competitors or ours, or even other ones in different states that we know of. Um, I think a lot of times the comfortability comes from, again, that construction mindset from an individual, where if you are a company owner, a construction company owner, management company, the mindset is construction. So the feed goes into, who can I hire that knows construction? Who can I hire that knows construction? Who can I hire that knows construction? And what you start to see is you start to see this revolving door of individuals that come into a company. And the culture, though, doesn't change. It's all one mindset of a culture of construction. And I think that for us, again, it goes back to the difference between property management executive side to construction owner at one time again, and working for other employers at a high executive level yourself. The culture was completely different because we didn't think like a construction company. We thought of ourselves as a tech first construction company because of my background and knowing that we wanted to be one step ahead of, not not saying our competitors. We wanted to be one step ahead so that the industry of multifamily would catch up to what we were currently doing, because we knew that what we were creating and doing, the industry still wasn't quite there yet. And I still think even today, there are many things I know that a lot of people are working on to bring that company culture or multifamily up to a certain level of technology, but it's still lacking in so many areas. So we even have to wind it back sometimes
True.
because it overwhelms them, or it's just too fast, or, too fast paced for them. So, again, getting back to the, other companies in construction realm of how they think and what they do, when you hire the same type of individuals as who you are, the result that you're going to get is either one, you're going to get the exact same thing that potentially you might not like. Why? Because there's a lot of things I think for individuals and humans like you and myself that there's probably, I won't even say there's many things that I have personally that I deal with as a human being that I don't necessarily want to project on other people. That's my own personal space where I need to work on myself. We all have things that we have to work on.
Yeah.
But when you hire specifically looking for somebody that can mirror you, I think that's probably not the wisest thing to do. I
I
think
agree.
the important thing for companies to do is looking for people that can expand what you do know, and they can expand on that their own way, as we talked about, outside the box thinkers owning their own positions, but also they can create their own synopsis, their own critique, their own way of doing things, making it making it definitely different than what we do. And you just don't see that a lot. You see somebody going and putting an ad into a paper, ad online for a specific job, and you can almost read that job and know who actually posted it, because they're basically posting for their own job, if that makes
Hmm.
sense, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about our, we kind of went deep on the company culture a little bit. We went into a little bit of the history, obviously, of where we are and where we are today. Um, we are going to expand. We know that for sure. We're currently, right now, we're in Washington, we're in Oregon. We do have plans to expand into multiple states from clients that have asked us to do it. Is there anything else that you have, giving the audience, the listeners, the viewers, a little glimpse about you and me, where we started? Obviously, if you guys got questions, you can always go online. You can, type up in a note and ask us any questions that you want, if you want to get a little bit more familiar with what we do. But also personally, we're definitely open books for anybody. Obviously, it goes a little bit more in depth from my California tech company coming to Washington. There's a lot more behind that. And then also, I know with Clay, there's a lot more behind what he did previously as a business owner at one point in time. And then also, just the journey that you were on basically in all the trades as well. But is there anything else ending this episode that you'd like to tell the viewers, listeners out there about PREM1ER to this point?
To this point, I've been very thankful that we've had the growth we have. And I would say largely it's due to not just our employees, but also our clients.
Yeah,
We have some
for sure.
incredible clients that they know that we're about integrity.
Yeah.
What we show up, we give what they need.
And a lot of these
Get it
clients
done.
have supported us when we had nothing again. Some of our first jobs that we ever got, we should have never gotten. But again, by the grace of God and where we are, where we were at that time, I have no clue, but somebody believed and somebody seen something in us as individuals and us as a company at Premier to give us that opportunity. And I know we did a phenomenal job that opened up opportunities for different locations with that. But yeah, I would just say, you know what, to encourage everybody out there, uh, if it doesn't matter how big it is, it doesn't matter how small the job is, just get that first job underneath your belt. Stay confident, stay driven, stay focused, and good things will happen from you. People want to see integrity. People want to see follow up. People want to see if I say I'm going to do it, that means I'm going to do it. And they wait for that. I looked for it in the industry. I used to hold Clay to the fire when he didn't deliver on that at points and times. And so just keep that in your wheelhouse, and we wish you guys all the best in your endeavors. Keep watching for more episodes. We're going to be talking again way in depth on different things that we've learned, different things that we utilize as a company, how we got to where we are, which that's kind of the grand scheme of things, probably happening in a few weeks here. But stay tuned. Thank you guys again for listening and watching. And again, you can pick us up on any of the podcast stations, YouTube. You'll see a link down below of all the stations or whatever you call them. I don't even know what you call them. That's how good I am at this. But thanks again, you guys. We appreciate you. And yeah, till next time.
Talk soon.